What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here from DFS Army, and this is your NFL Week 4 Fanduel First Look. All right, guys, we are back for another week of daily fantasy football action over on FanDuel. It is NFL Week 4, and we're going to take a look at the FanDuel pricing system. We're going to take a look at some of these backup running backs. Where were they priced? Do we have any bargains? Do we have any specials? What are we doing for FanDuel this week? So let's just jump right into it. Before I like to actually dive into the players, though, as you know, I like to take a look at the game lines and understand which games we should be looking to actively target this week. And on screen, I've got Sharp.app, the Sharp app game tiles where we could see the totals, the overrunners, and all of that. So taking a look right here, I like to look at the game totals. I like to look at the spreads and just get a sense of which games we should be targeting for DFS purposes this week. First game, we've got the Chargers at Houston, and this is actually a closer spread than I would have expected. Chargers didn't look that great last week with Herbert kind of nursing the injury. Don't know what's going on there with that injury, how much healing is going to take place from last week to this week, which I assume is what's keeping that salary close. But, should we keep an eye on Dameon Pierce? Yes, I think so. Down here, we've got a really interesting game and one I want to get a piece of between Seattle and Detroit. And I mean, I'm just shocked by the 50-point total here, being that Seattle's just not a very good offense. Detroit loses Swift this week, so we got Jamal Williams as our sort of potential free square. We'll see where FanDuel priced him this week, but I think he's a great play regardless of the salary this week, just because the guy's been getting in the end zone, but might be too chalky, might be cash only. Let's see where that goes. We've got the Colts home against the Titans here, 42-point total, pretty gross total. Both running backs are going to be in play, Taylor and Henry, but there's a good chance we see a little bit a high defensive battle. This one's that game total's probably screaming, be careful. So let's be careful. Cleveland at Atlanta, another one with a shockingly high total. Atlanta has a lot of reasonably priced pieces. They're 1.5-point underdogs at home, 50-point total. This is a game where we can get a lot of action from without having to spend a whole lot. So I'm definitely interested there. Nick Chubb priced up like crazy, though, so we'll be careful with him. Washington at Dallas. This one, the 42.5-point total. We've seen that these Dallas games are where fantasy production tends to go to die. So we got to be careful with this one. Dallas trade Diggs, probably going to take out Terry McLaurin. McLaurin's just not doing anything this year, but Curtis Samuel, cheat code, and Jahan Dotson for Washington might be interesting. Here we've got Chicago heading to New York to take on the Giants. Giants defense. This Bears offense is really brutal. They're tough to watch. Fields, I hope he turns it around because it's not looking very good. Darnell Mooney, unplayable. Giants lose Sterling Shepard last week. Not sure who they have at wide receiver anymore at this point. Kenny Golladay, does he emerge? I have no idea what they're going to do. Are they ever going to play Kadarius Toney? That guy's always hurt. It's almost seems like he's fake injured. I never have said that about a player, but Kadarius Toney, sketchy dude. All right. Not too much excitement in this game. Barkley had the big game, but he's priced up, and it's just such a low total. Barkley's ceiling is just not high enough. I like his floor, but his ceiling is rough, especially on FanDuel, where the PPR doesn't really help us, and the 100-yard bonuses don't. We need touchdowns on FanDuel. How many times do I have to say it? All right, Jacksonville at Philadelphia. Very exciting game. 48.5-point total. Jacksonville looked great. Jacksonville, right? Trevor Lawrence. He's the guy, right? He's doing it. He's becoming an NFL quarterback. I love to see it. And of course, Jalen Hurts really, really kind of putting the kibosh on the naysayers, and also looking like a dynamic National Football League quarterback, throwing passes, complete, and put up yards. He's doing everything right. Love this game. Love the Eagles in general in this game. But the Jacksonville side has some positivity. We're just going to be careful because the Eagles have an elite secondary. So I do think this isn't a spot to get crazy with Jaguars players. But James Robinson, always playable. He's a beast. Jets at the Steelers. Not much to like here other than the defenses. And so I can say Najee Harris is fairly inexpensive. The Jets have been torched by running backs, so he's somebody we'll keep an eye on. He might be of interest, but again, not a huge ceiling for Najee Harris. Buffalo at Baltimore, game of the week, 51.5 point total right here. So that's what I'm excited about. Close spread. Buffalo road 3.5 point favorites. There's nothing not to like about this game. Load up, back up the truck for the Baltimore pieces, for the Buffalo pieces. This is a game to load up on. And Stephon Diggs might be hurt, which really would elevate the Isaiah McKenzie's and Gabriel Davis's of the world. Even a Dawson Knox becomes much more exciting if Stephon Diggs is limited. So we'll have to let the week play out to figure that part out. Cardinals at Panthers, nothing really to see here. A little surprised at the low total. Christian McCaffrey last week getting the volume, which is nice to see. I could see Christian McCaffrey really surprising the world here with a breakout game, but man, any offense tied to Baker Mayfield is always going to be sketchy. David Njoku also kind of interesting coming off that big game last week. Last couple games, Pats head out to Green Bay in what looks to be a blowout situation. New England probably starting Brian Hoyer. It's gross. Stay away. This game is just a pass. And the last game on the main slate, we've got the Broncos at the Raiders in a sneaky game, a 45.5 point total under the radar. Raiders 2.5 point favorites. Broncos just not looking that good with Russell at the helm. He's just not, I don't know. He ain't cooking. Whatever he's cooking, I'm not hungry right now for that. Whatever that, I don't like. He's cooking eggplant. I don't like eggplant. Russ is out there cooking liver and eggplant. It's gross. I don't like it. Vegas needs a win. Not much to like here. Javonte Williams interests me a little bit because I just think he's starting to take over the lead back role, and I think Javonte may be the most talented running back in the NFL right now. They're just not giving him enough touches. Listen, I'm not saying that for sure. I think he might be. I don't know for sure. He might be. If there was no Melvin Gordon, Williams would be one of the highest priced running backs on every slate, though. That much I can tell you. All right, let's get into the FanDuel leaderboard here. And we're going to start at the quarterback position as always. I'm going to move myself out of the screen so you don't have to look at me blocking the screen. All right. So right at the top, this is not a week from I've looked up and down the quarterback position group. This does not seem like a week to screw around too much at quarterback on FanDuel. I think you got to play one of these top three guys between Allen, Jackson, and Hurts. And Josh Allen stands out the best of them all, even though Lamar Jackson has been actually putting up bigger numbers each week compared to Allen. Lamar Jackson, much more likely to get you a dud in a game where he's facing the much, much tougher defense. The Bills defense is really good. Again, don't be scared. Don't be scared of Lamar, though, because Lamar can beat any kind of defense with his legs. So I don't care how good your defense is against normal teams. When you're talking about going up against the Ravens, Lamar does things that other quarterbacks can't do. So with that being said, Josh Allen's the safer bet, and he's going to be who I slot into mine. And it seems lame. Like, Kevin, what are you doing? You're putting the most expensive guy in there. I normally don't, but it's really not the most expensive guy because it's 89, 88, and 86. So Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts all priced about the same here. As we continue down the list, I'm trying to get so that you guys can see this on screen better, but I'm going to move myself out of the way here. So as we go down the list, there's really nothing super exciting. Herbert coming off that injury. This could be a good spot for Herbert, but who knows with the ribs? He didn't play that well last week, so I don't trust it. You've got Kyler on the road at Carolina. Kyler could pop off at any time, but he hasn't necessarily been going crazy this season so far. This is an easier matchup, though, than what he's seen. So I'll have a little bit of that in tournaments. Jared Goff, highly projected game, but he was rarely the guy that's putting up a lot of points. It's been Jamal Williams. I actually think Jared Goff's a really interesting sort of large field GPP pivot because everybody will be playing Javonte. With a Javonte and a Jamal, it's going to mess me up when I say I might be saying them wrong, but we know who we're talking about, right? Jamal Williams. So just making sure. If I said Javonte or Jamal, it's going to happen. What are you going to do? All right. So, but yeah, with all the Jamal Williams chalk, maybe Jared Goff. Like, part of the reason Jared Goff is not putting up big numbers is because Jamal Williams has been getting all of the touchdowns. What if he doesn't get them and Goff throws for all the touchdowns just randomly? So in large field GPP, I might get a little bit of that just as a leverage off of Jamal. Not a great spot for Lawrence. I'm not going there. Definitely not touching Aaron Rodgers. Marcus Mariota is interesting down here if we need to save a lot of salary. 7,300 is enough savings to make it worthwhile. Beyond that, it gets pretty gross at the quarterback position. I'm playing Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, not until further notice. Carson Wentz has been really good at the QB position, but Dallas defense isn't exactly one to be trifled with. I might mess with a little Carson Wentz in tournaments because he is massively priced down because of the matchup. After that, it's pretty much a dead zone. Can't play any of these turds. So, you're either paying up or you're kind of punting with a Mariota type. I don't think there's too much of a middle ground. So this is just how FanDuel is set up and how DFS is set up for week 3. It's just the way that the teams are falling. As far as the running back position goes, Nick Chubb priced at the top of the slate at 9,200. All right, he's been the top scorer. That's fair. Christian McCaffrey, 80. I actually think this could be a Christian McCaffrey. This could be the week, but I don't trust it. Jonathan Taylor at home, yes, could be the week for him. These are all really interesting tournament plays. I don't think we're going to be able to get to them in sort of our core because every one of these running backs has, quite frankly, been just horribly disappointing all season. But it's also important to point out that the salary has come down massively. I wish FanDuel showed it, but week 1, a lot of these guys were 10K, and now they're 8,700. So FanDuel is adjusting the salaries down accordingly across the board for the running back position group. Austin Eckler, not really a FanDuel guy for me, not a touchdown maker. They don't leave him in on the goal line. They bring in those other guys way too often for my taste, especially for an $8,400 player on FanDuel. I think it's a complete avoid. But if you don't think so, put that in the comments section below. And also as a reminder, if you're not signed up at DFS Army yet as a VIP, and get signed up now. You get the Domination Station Optimizer, my cheat sheets, the breakdowns. We smashed another week of DFS this past week. We're killing it on the prop games as well. So there's so many different areas that it helps to be a DFS Army premium subscriber. And of course, being in our Discord and getting all the late information, being on Mac Hollins and Zay Jones last week, it helps so many people do so well. Get signed up. Look at all the avatars in your tournaments. Look in your tournaments. Who's winning them? It's DFS Army. Get signed up. See what all the hype is about. Promo code Geek gets you 10% off VIP. And of course, if you don't want to sign up for premium DFS Army access, at least subscribe to this channel. I've been looking at our analytics, and 70-80% of you that are watching these are not subscribed to the channel. You're missing DFS breakdown videos. These are gold. We have strategy, all free on the DFS Army YouTube channel. So make sure you check it out, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Ting, ting. Get that going. So, all right, continuing down the running back list. Saquon Barkley again, 8,100. I don't mind it. Against Chicago, we just saw Chicago's a team you want to target running backs against because the game's always close. It's always close. They're turning it over. They're giving you the ball in the red zone. So I don't mind Saquon at 8,100. The ceiling isn't quite what, let's say, a ceiling game would be for Derrick Henry when he puts up a 50-burger or Taylor. But I think his floor is higher than both Taylor and Derrick Henry most weeks. James Robinson priced up a little bit here at 7,800, but an interesting play. I don't love the matchup defensively. I think this is a game where Philly may roll. Cordell Patterson coming off the big week last week, all via the run, not much via the pass. I don't know that we could expect this many rushing attempts from Cordell Patterson most weeks, but you can't deny that he's been very good this year, and he's kind of doing what he did last year, and he's never owned at all. So he's really, really interesting from a tournament perspective. But the first player we're going to plug into our lineup with the injury to Swift is Jamal Williams. And note that FanDuel priced up Jamal all the way to the DeAndre Swift price point. So they're giving you no bargain for playing him, but it's just a good matchup. And obviously in tournaments, I'm going to check the ownership projections that we do over at DFS Army to see if it's worth playing a Jamal chalk in tournaments. Like last week, we talked about how Montgomery and Fournette were going to be such chalk that there was some benefit to just straight fading those type of players. There were great spots, especially Montgomery. He should have smashed, but there's benefit to fading situations like that in tournaments. And of course, you get injuries or you have just disappointing games. But if you check out the video in the YouTube channel here on the DFS Army YouTube channel called Leveraging Ownership to Crush DFS, you'll see why it's so important that ownership leverage is really much more important than the actual player projection when you're attacking giant tournaments. Really, really important stuff. Make sure you watch that video after this. I'm going to put it in the end scroll of this video so you can find it. I'm going to have to figure out how to do that, but I will. All right. Continuing down the list, Aaron Jones is a favorite. Normally I don't target running backs, but Aaron Jones is fine if you like him. I think heavy favored Packers at home. I like AJ Dillon there to kind of come in that game late in garbage time, but Aaron Jones could get you there. Khalil Herbert, if David Montgomery is out this week, Khalil Herbert, very interesting, has done nothing but smash when he started. There were a few games last season as well, and this kid has done nothing but produce when given opportunity. So, yeah, I'm going right back to Khalil if Montgomery is out. As a matter of fact, let's plug him in. I'm not sure Montgomery will be out, but I'm going to plug him in here just in case. And I know I'm going with our 2 injury replacement guys, but they're in good matchups. What can you do? Continuing down the running back list, though, see who else we can find. Najee Harris at 7K against the Jets, I think is playable. Low total game, but playable. Javonte Williams, again, pricing coming down to the point where now this kind of looks like a pretty good play. Raiders can't stop the run. They can't stop anything. And as long as they give Javonte enough touches, he could really smash. So I'm very interested in Javonte, maybe in cash, but definitely in tournaments. Dameon Pierce is another guy in a decent matchup at home. Ton of work. Basically got all the running back work for Houston last week. And my sneaky play is James Conner, the Terminator here, 6,800. So, Arizona hasn't been able to feature him because they've essentially been losing games and coming from behind or just been in some rough spots. But at some point, Conner's going to pop, and this could be that game. So there isn't too much going on for me at the running back position beyond the top group. You get some of these sort of, ne'er-do-well types down here. Devin Singletary, do we believe what happened last week? That would be the ultimate in tournament play. Devin Singletary coming off of the big game last week, but all via the pass, circumstantial. I can't trust that will happen again. But he's in the mix. All right, wide receiver this week, Stephon Diggs, the top play, the highest priced one. He was chalk last week. Chalk explosion failed. Got plenty of targets, just didn't do enough with it to pay off on a salary, and that's always a risk with the highest priced player. I think it's going to be tough to afford a Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen combination salary-wise without really killing your lineup. So let's see what happens with Diggs, but that injury gives us a little bit of an excuse to maybe look another way for wide receiver this week. There's a lack of bargains at the running back position, and kind of at quarterback. So I do think we're going to have to live in the middle zone for wide receivers in week 4 on FanDuel. AJ Brown, touchdown scorer, always good play, but again, a little expensive. Amon-Ra, loved that if you could afford him at 8K. Again, he's been crushing this season. Got a little injured, so we're going to have to see what happens with that. I'm going to move myself over here again so you guys can maybe see it better. I'm just not sure. You know what? I got the best idea. Here we go. All right. Marquise Brown, 17 target game. I don't expect more of the same this week, but let's acknowledge that Marquise Brown's participation in that offense is going up. Christian Kirk, key part of his offense as well. Amari Cooper looks good. Pittman, rough game last week. Could bounce back here. Mike Williams, I never love Mike Williams when Keenan Allen plays. For me, it's one or the other. When Allen is out, Williams looks great. So it's just something to keep in mind. DK Metcalf here. Again, we talked about the Seattle at Detroit game earlier as being one just to target. And while I don't love Geno Smith as a quarterback, DK Metcalf's in this mix. He's been getting targeted quite a bit. let's look at his target numbers. But I mean, 12, 7, 6. So the production hasn't been there because his quarterback is terrible, and that's not changing. So it would take kind of a miracle touchdown lob for DK to really pay off. But it's a good matchup for him. It's just a lot to ask with Geno Smith at the helm for your team. These are kind of no's. Devontae Smith, a nice pairing with Jalen Hurts, but probably not a standalone play. Cortland Sutton, again, kind of the main guy in Denver right now, getting lots of targets. The target share is spectacular for Cortland Sutton, but he's actually in the mix. I think he's a perfectly playable, perfectly fine play here. McLaurin, no. Bateman gets us a little bit of exposure to Baltimore if we go that way. Gabriel Davis is a nice pairing with Josh Allen, and that's where I'm going to start this lineup with. Gabriel Davis pairs up nicely with Allen. The injury to Diggs, or the possible injury to Diggs, is helpful in the sense of potentially more targets going Davis's way. The other guy, if we wanted to mix up with Allen, would be Isaiah McKenzie. But I mean, he's got a 1-game sample size of kind of popping off, so I'm not quite ready to trust that just yet. Now, I want to get a bring back from the Baltimore side, and my favorite is going to be the tight end, Mark Andrews, and he's just been getting 30+% of those targets. Just makes sense to try to get Andrews in there. We might not be able to afford him at 8,400 in a lineup that has Josh Allen in it, or if we pay for this luxury tight end, we're going to suffer elsewhere. So that's a very, very high price to pay for Mark Andrews, to be honest, at 8,400. So what I'm actually going to do here is go a different route on this lineup and just get our correlation with Rashad Bateman from Baltimore. I don't think we can afford. It would take a serious salary saver to afford Mark Andrews a luxury tight end, so to speak. Maybe we'll find one, but I'm skeptical. All right, I'm going to jump over to defense before we finish out this first look, and finish out the wide receiver position, because I kind of want to demonstrate on screen how much salary we're actually going to have to spend to create a real lineup. I'm going to go here with, I think, the Jets at Pittsburgh. Well, I want to go as cheap of a viable defense as we can. Vegas Raiders, Denver, playable. You know what? I could even do that. We could go the lowest at 3K and just put the Raiders in here. They're not a good defense, but Denver's been playing terrible. If we don't play them, maybe Arizona at Carolina. Actually, I'll do that. I think Carolina is just kind of like a worse team. So any one of these, either Raiders, Arizona, I don't like any of them particularly, but I think they're all playable. The first kind of decent defense, let's say it's either probably the Colts here against the Titans. Maybe Tennessee against the Colts. Yeah. Defense looks pretty crappy this week in general, so I'm just going to put the cheapest one in here and move on from that. So continuing at the wide receiver spot, we put Bateman in. We've got Gabe Davis in, so we've got our correlation, right? Next, I'm going to plug in Drake London, who is coming off a pretty big game a couple weeks ago. Last week, got the touchdown, but primarily this game just projects really well. So it's that 50-point total, and I think it's a usable game for the purposes of a lineup build. So we could play London. Let me just keep going down here, see if there's any other even cheaper wide receivers that stand out. This is the maybe the return of Zach Wilson for the Jets. I don't want to target any of that. Zay Jones isn't in a very good matchup. He had the big week last week. Darnell, I told you, dead to me. So this zone here, there's not a whole lot going on of interest. Yeah, Kenny Golladay, I can't play that. So, it gets pretty gross underneath the 6K zone. And this is what I'm saying. Last week we had some real... I have one more. Rondale Moore. The return of Rondale. I just want to point out, if he comes back at 5K, I'm interested. Let's see what it says here. Hasn't practiced, be back no later than week 5. So we'll see. If he does come back, I'm interested in Rondale Moore at 5K because he's a touchdown scorer. He can actually put it in the end zone. All right, so we have 7K left. And I had mentioned before, I thought it was going to be difficult in any sort of a lineup like this to afford a premium tight end like Mark Andrews. As you can see, it pretty much is impossible. We'd have to have a $5,700 player in the flex, and that's restrictive to this lineup. It doesn't make it look good to finish up a lineup like that. It's not to say we can't pick a $5,700 player that might be decent, but I would much rather play a cheap tight end, hope that they get in the end zone, rather than paying up for the tight end. So at the low end of the tight end spectrum, we've got Goddard, Waller, Pitts here in the 6K range. That gets us a $7,500 player in the flex. If we go all the way down, even to a Zach Ertz, who I usually like every single week, that gets us to 8,600 in the flex, which allows us to plug in a stud like Mark Andrews if we want, or a studly running back like Derrick Henry. Let's see what other tight end options we have. I'm trying to see if I can do something a little more correlative. If we want to kind of correlate, and we can add David Njoku in here up against Drake London in this game, create a correlative combination right there. And yeah, we could put Andrews in this lineup and close it out. Fits very nicely. Could just go a different route here. Now, if we put Andrews in, I might switch up Bateman. So we have the correlation with Andrews. We could switch up Bateman and maybe see if there's somebody else that looks interesting in this price range. How much do we have left? No, it didn't leave any extra salary on the table. And I'm really not loving that approach. So I'm going to go back to the Bateman. I kind of want to get a running back here in that last spot. So I'm going to go back to Bateman here at wide receiver. And in the last spot, I think I'm going to throw in one of the, I'm going to go a little cheaper at tight end. We go a little cheaper here. Let's go with maybe Hawkinson. I want to get to, maybe Taylor. I like this, Taylor or Derrick Henry. So I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor. He continues to get the usage. This is the kind of player that you want to play on FanDuel. He hasn't had the big week, but it's coming. And this lineup looks pretty good to me. So there's our first look. FanDuel NFL week 3 lineup entered, right? First look, FanDuel NFL week 4. Obviously, a lot of news still yet to come this week. A lot of changes. It's Tuesday. Who knows? But this is an overview of the slate. We're going to like that Bills game. We're going to like that game. The Titans game looks exciting. Atlanta against Cleveland looks exciting. Seattle, Detroit looks exciting. So let's try to build around those 3 games with the higher totals. And let's see what happens as the week goes on. Maybe we'll get some other chalk. Maybe we'll get some other cheap plays. Remember, if you're not signed up at DFS Army, go sign up right now. Promo code Geek gets you in there for 10% off monthly VIP. We're half the price of most of the other sites out there that you look at already. Our members are taking down tournaments week in and week out. We took the Millie Maker week 1. We're crushing showdowns nonstop. So check out DFS Army. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.